This past spring, Mary Jo and I had the privilege of going with her brother and a friend of his to Spain. And we walked the Way of St. James, which is called the Camino de Santiago. And it's approximately a 500-mile walk, like from here to Chicago. When Mary Jo and I told our sister-in-law about it, she used some expressive language and said, "Why in the world would you want to do something like that?" And this is the four of us in Saint Jean, France, as we were beginning. And the next picture, those are my first steps. I took a picture of my first step. We're beginning. Notice how nice and clean my shoes are. They're nicely oiled. I was looking good at the beginning. Now, there's different ways to do it. When Mary Jo and I read about it and talked with her brother about it, it was like, okay, the purest way is that you carry everything in a backpack and you stay in hostels, which are basically like barracks all the way through. And in those barracks, you might have people that snore. There's bunk beds, about 10 rows of 10 bunk beds. People would be up on their computer at 3 a.m. Bathroom stuff is a joy with 20-some people there. And so Mary Jo's brother said, "You know what? I think we should stay in hotels instead." And okay, we said, "Well, how much is that going to cost?" He said, "Well, due to his generosity," he said, "I'll just pay for yours." I said, "Okay, if you have to." So different ways of doing the Camino. Some people rode their bikes the whole 500 miles. Some people walked a certain portion for a week or two each year until they can finish it. But there's many ways. Another picture, the next one here, that says there are signs like that all across the path, and that means 790 kilometers left, which means if you divide by 1.6, which I did a lot on the way, that said, Dean and Mary Jo, you only have 493 miles left. That was not encouraging. My first emotional encouragement was when we got halfway. But the whole time, as we walked, you could see we were just so afraid of sunscreen there, that it was probably 40 degrees there that day we were walking. But there was a common bond that we experienced. They called us pilgrims, and it's a spiritual journey. It follows the way that James the apostle was supposed to have taken as he shared the gospel. And we met people from Australia, the Netherlands, Germany, Japan. Everyone when they started got one of these little shells that you put on your backpack. And that was a sign that you were a pilgrim. And then as you went, they called this the Camino passport. And everywhere you went, you would get it stamped as proof that you did it. And then when you get to the very, very end, they give you a certificate that proves you did it. This certificate has meant so much to Mary Jo and I that we have not even opened it since we got home. But this proves that we did it. We met some awesome people that we might have only seen once, or maybe we saw them over 3 or 4 days. We had this one woman from Madrid, Diane was her name, and Mary Jo started this conversation with her. They were having a nice talk, so we said to her, "Would you mind if I prayed for you?" And she says, "Sure." So we held hands. She goes, "Oh, you mean now?" But as pilgrims, we traveled at different speeds, stayed in different lodgings. There were young, and then there was old pilgrims, but we were unified by our journey. And we started in March, so there were very, very few people on the trail. And the farther we got, the more people that were on the trail. And the last 100 kilometers was from a city called Saria, and many people start there because if you start there, you still can get your certificate, even though they're not true pilgrims like me and Mary Jo. And so we got to the hotel in Saria, and all of a sudden there were hundreds of people on this trail. And it was like, get off my trail, that, just like you really lost your privacy almost there. And, but they were all pilgrims as well, doing it their way. So we hadn't met many people, and it was easy to remember, oh, you're the two gals from Australia. You're the one from England. Oh, they have names too, but I couldn't remember them. It's kind of like life. We run into many people in this journey called life. You don't know when you're going to see them again, but life goes on. And in the book of Ephesians, Paul is writing from prison, most people believe. And the first 3 chapters outline everything that Jesus has done for us. And then in chapter 4, Paul starts out then, as the prisoner for the Lord, then, I urge you to live a life worthy of the calling you've received. Now that word urge, in other translations, is called I beg you, I encourage you, I plead with you to live a life worthy of the calling you've received. We just celebrated, if that's the right word, communion, shared communion together, remembering the calling that we've received as believers in Jesus, and that's what unites us. Paul says, live a life worthy, have high aspirations with what you want to do with your life. See, individually and as a church family, we need to live a life worthy. It's hard to do it as a church when you're not doing it individually, right? Because whatever we're doing individually, we're bringing in here to our church family. But we've been called. And so we don't walk worthy so that God will love us, but because he does love us. We walk worthy because we're motivated out of gratitude for what Jesus has done for us, not to earn brownie points into a better relationship with him. So how do we live a life worthy? Verse 2 says, be completely humble and gentle. Be patient, bearing with one another. Talk about 4 piece of cake qualities, right? Be completely, all in, be totally humble. One definition I saw of humble is strength under control. Another was that being humble is not thinking less of yourself. I'm just this terrible low life person. I'm so humble. No, it's not thinking less of yourself, but it's thinking of yourself less. It's interesting, Luke 14:11 says, for all those who exalt themselves will be humbled, and those who humble themselves will be exalted. We're encouraged in Scripture to humble ourselves. Now, I ask myself, why don't I want to humble myself? Well, I like to take care of my pride. My pride sometimes says, don't humble yourself. Let someone else do it. We're asked to humble ourselves, and sometimes we don't feel like we look so good when we humble ourselves. I'd rather look good. And Jesus said in that verse, whoever exalts himself will be what? Humbled. So either way in life, we're going to be humble. Now, God graciously gives you and me a choice. You can humble yourself, Or you can exalt yourself, and God says, I will humble you. I would rather choose to humble myself. And my Dean backwards thinking says the most selfish thing I can do to take care of me is to humble myself. I'm using reverse psychology on God there. I'm sure that'll work. So God says, be completely humble and gentle. Gentleness is a fruit of the Spirit, is something that should naturally grow into our lives. I think of it as a soft approach or being approachable. Proverbs 15:1 says, a gentle answer turns away wrath, but a harsh word stirs up anger. Being gentle. We're to be completely humble, completely gentle. And then that word we all love, patient. Able to accept or tolerate delays, problems, or suffering. And I thought, well, I can do that. I can accept that. But then there's a second part of the definition that says this, without becoming annoyed or anxious. I won't tell you which one of you are annoying me. That's the hard part, where the rubber meets the road. I'm being totally patient. And then he goes on to say, bearing with one another. That's like putting up with one another. I try to tell myself that even the people that annoy me, of which they don't know that I'm patient, by the way, even the people that annoy me are trying to do their best in life. They have the nerve to think and do it different than me. Like, you ever get annoyed by a driver? Don't point at your spouse. That's not, I try, when I get annoyed at a driver, especially one who's going unreasonably slow, I think to myself, you know what? That could be my mom up there driving that car. So I'm going to be patient with my mom, and that changes my perception or my response. It's weird, but it does. How quick are you to judge others that do things different than you? I wondered if there was such a thing as a batting average. How good is your batting average of giving others a break, of giving grace to others versus judging others? That's something only you can answer. 4 qualities: being completely humble, gentle, patient, and bearing with one another. Those are the ingredients of a life worthy. And I think they're the foundation for verse 3. Make every effort to keep the unity of the Spirit through the bond of peace. Make every effort. Not like some of you took piano lessons. This is kind of hard. I don't like it. I'm quitting. It just didn't work for me. Not give it a shot. If it doesn't work, no big deal. Make every effort means keep trying, find a way to get it done, to do it. And we are to keep the unity. If you're keeping something, that means you've got it. So don't lose it. It's a valuable commodity. I see unity, one definition, as a oneness of purpose. We have many common experiences that unite us. Mary Jo and I, when we traveled with her brother and her brother's friend, we actually met him in the airport in Paris. Hi, Tim. How you doing? Fine. Okay. We spent these 44 days together. We may never see Tim again. or we may see him out in California if we visit. But we had an experience that united us. So if we see Tim in next summer, 5, 10, 20 years, we've got that common bond. Sometimes if you're in sports or the military, you're united. You have shared experiences like that. People that do a different job, in police work, you're united as well. You share a common bond there that others don't share. Unity can be something like this. I want everyone to sing this note with me. Ready? Okay, that can be called unity, except for a couple of you. And but that is actually uniformity. It's all the same. Now, we're going to sing 3 different notes here, okay? So, ready? Ba, 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 ba. Keep it going. Try it again. And then the balcony, you can go, oh, baby, when they finish out over there. Ready? Try it again. Ba, 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 ba. That is unity. Okay? It's not uniformity. And unity sounded a lot nicer than uniformity. Imagine you're a builder, and every builder starts with a dream of this house. And included in a house, I don't know if I've got them all, but there's an architect, there's dirt work to be done, concrete, carpenter, roofer, insulator, plumber, electrician, heating and air, sheetrock, painter, cabinetry, window, siding, and landscaping. All of these are united by the goal of building a great house. Yet their jobs are so different. Their skills are so different. And at times, one will take the lead in order to do their thing. And the house would be incomplete if every one of these wasn't done. Can you imagine having your house built and the salesperson says, here's the keys to your house. By the way, we got everything done, but we just didn't get the plumbing in. So we put a porta potty in back, and it's only another $12.95 a month, but have a good time. Or maybe the plumber and the electrician are coming to do their job at the house, and they see the sheetrock guy coming out smiling, and the sheetrock guy says, you know what? I had time in my schedule, a job canceled on me, so I got all the sheetrock work done. I taped it, I primed it, it's great. The electrician and the plumber would be looking at him like, you idiot. What the sheetrock guy did was needed, but it wasn't at the right time. We work together in unity, but there's timing in the whole process. That's what unity is. I've had the privilege, if that's the word, of helping my son-in-law and daughter sometimes on their house, and he trusted me with very important things like stuffing styrofoam in between the floors, so I couldn't screw it up. But it was a necessary thing. Every job I named there was necessary, and there was a time and a place for it as they went on. That's unity. One of my favorite verses is Colossians 3:16. It says, let the peace of Christ rule in your hearts, in which you were called into one body. Sometimes there's not a Bible verse that tells you just what to do. Should I take this job or this job? I don't know. Should I marry this person? I'm not sure. Should we move to Timbuktu or stay in Duluth? I don't know. There's not a Bible verse about that. That verse says, let the peace of Christ rule in your heart. So when you're making decisions in life, what college am I going to go to? Can you choose choice A, and still have God's peace? Can you choose choice B and still have God's peace? I think sometimes we try to get, I got to get the perfect will of God, otherwise I'm a failure. I look at it as best you honor God, and you have a choice like that. If you choose B and you have God's peace, if B doesn't work out, you've tried it, you don't have to feel guilty, and you can go on to A or something else. But you're letting God's peace rule in your heart as you have to make decisions sometimes that there's no specific Bible verse for that. Now, we are to maintain or keep the unity. And just some practical things about maintaining and keeping the unity. We do that by what you say, what we say, how we say it, and what we don't say. Do you know sometimes the best thing to say is nothing? It's so much more fun to say something, though, isn't it? Just get your 2 cents in. I may have done this once before, but there's the 3 letters here. Can you phonetically say that with me? Taken. Taken. No, not both of you. I meant all of you. Taken. All right. When you aren't sure what to say, ask yourself, is it true? Is it kind? Is it necessary? You can guess which letters go with which word, okay? Is it true? Is it kind? Is it necessary? What we do individually outside these walls is what we do as a church family. We maintain and keep unity by what we say, how we say it, and what we don't say. So is it true? Is it kind? Is it necessary? Second, watch your attitude. You ever say that to your child? Watch your attitude, young man, young lady. Sometimes we have to say that to ourselves as we look in the mirror. Watch your attitude. Are you choosing humble? Are you choosing gentle and patient and bearing with one another? I once read a story about a man in a subway, and there was a lady with 2 little kids, and those 2 kids were just obnoxious. And the guy was judging her, saying, you know what? Why didn't that lady do something about her kids? Any good parent, you know how your mind can go on and on and on about other people's kids? All right, well, he was doing that. And finally, he got irritated, and he politely said, ma'am, I think your kids need a little attention. And the lady goes, yeah, I'm sorry. We just came from the hospital where their dad just died. Boom. All of a sudden, this judging heart turned into, what can I do to help? Oh, this poor lady. We don't always know the whole story. Be slow to judge. A third one, it might sound a little unusual, but be aware of your emotions. We think differently when we are emotionally drained versus full. We think differently. Just within your own house, as family. Sometimes when we're tired, worn out, we can say things that would better left be unsaid, right? In a less than nice tone of voice. We all have that temptation. So if we're going to maintain and keep the unity, we do it by what you say, how you say it, what you don't say. Is it true, kind, and necessary? Watch your attitude. You know, I'd much rather watch your attitude, actually, than mine. Isn't it so easy to watch someone else's attitude as I judge them and as I put up with them? You know, as a church family, we have a wide variety of us here. We have some that have been here forever. We have some that have been here for 3 or 4 years. I've been here so long that I don't feel weird coming in the front of the sanctuary anymore, like I did when I first started coming here. We as a church family, whether you were here first Sunday today or not, have hardly been coming at all, are new. We are all at different places in our journey, and all are necessary. For some, Pastor Stephen was the only pastor they've ever known in their lives. If Pastor Stephen was here, I jokingly say that poor person, right? And but that's the only pastor they've experienced. For others, like all you other old people who have been here forever, there were pastors named Swanson, Sywick, Ostrom, Gillette, Brown, Anderson, Peterson, that were all here before Osborne. And as we head into a new chapter, some of us here can look back to all those pastors and go, oh, he was so good, he was so good, he was then you go, oh, you know, but you have faith. God worked in the past, and God's going to work in the future. There's another picture. It's about 50 degrees there, and it's raining, and that is the square in Santiago, Spain, when Mary Jo and I finished. And if you see right at the top of those two peaks, there's 2 windows there. We were up there, and we toured the roof, much to Mary Jo's dismay up there when she doesn't like heights. But this said, this was our day. We did it. We finished. She earned our diploma that may never come out of here. I don't know. But you know what happened after that? Life went on. We visited Portugal for a week, had some memorable experiences there, but life went on. Similarly, last week we had a great finish with Pastor Stephen and his family. But our story is going to go on as well as theirs. And as a church family, we always have the opportunity to look back in appreciation of what God has done. And with God's help, as we choose to be humble and make every effort to keep the unity, out of that, we can look forward with anticipation to what God will do as we continue to trust Him. Because we will continue to encounter God, we will continue to equip people, and we will continue to extend the gospel. That hasn't changed. That won't change. And together, we're in this journey. It's a good journey to be in. God asks us to live a life worthy as we follow Him. Let's pray.